In John chapter 14, Jesus tells his disciples, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid." Jesus said this during the Last Supper. That's the night that Jesus is going to be betrayed. The night Jesus will be arrested. So he's telling his disciples, listen, I'm going away, but the Holy Spirit will come. Have peace. What final words could be more appropriate from the Prince of Peace during his final hours? But how do we imagine what that peace is? And how we imagine it, is that what Isaiah meant? And if not, what did he mean? Peace has a few meanings for us. We use it in a variety of contexts. It's the opposite of war. So when we're at war, we're not at peace. When we are not in war, we're in peacetime. I feel like that line, however, lately has become really blurred. I'm trying to think, are we at war right now or are we at peace? I'm not even sure. I don't even know. And it feels like we've been at war for a very long time. More broadly, peace can just mean the absence of conflict. Because it may not be nations that are at odds, but people, individuals. And so where there is conflict, there is no peace. Where there is not conflict, there may be peace. I guess the absence of conflict doesn't necessarily mean peace. In fact, the simple lack of conflict may in fact breed more conflict. A little more abstractly, we can talk about peace as a lack of hardship. Like when life is going smoothly or easy, we're at peace. There's that general lack of stress. I'm at peace because I'm not stressed out. It's probably how we think life used to be prior to COVID. Remember back then when it was so peaceful? Although it does feel like, and I'm sure it's a little bit of nostalgia, but it felt noticeably less stressful back then. Or at least maybe we had more moments of less stress. It just feels like the stress today is just constant. But all of those seem to be that peace is the absence of something. And is that what we're talking about? Is that what peace is? Is simply the absence or lack of something? Or is it something in and of itself? Like darkness is not a thing, right? It's not a substance, it's not a thing. There is no such thing as darkness. It's only the absence of light. There's actually no such thing as cold. Cold is not a thing, it's merely the lack of heat. And so is peace like darkness and coldness that's just the lack of war or hardships or conflicts? Or is it something else like light and heat that is its own thing that brings peace? And so that peace doesn't come from the lack of conflict, but peace. But conflict comes from the lack of peace. Hardships come, stress comes, because we lack and have an absence of peace. Maybe our most emphasized way we understand peace, we talk about it like as an internal personal quietness. That sense of inner calm that when everything else is going crazy, inside we're still at peace. Of all of the definitions, this is the one I want most for my children, is for them to have some inner quietness. What's that? Outer quiet? I will take any form of quietness that... I take that back. There's some quietness that I don't want, because there's that's that quietness that they're being quiet because they're up to no good. Like I don't want that. I think this is the piece we most often go to when trying to interpret John 14. Because it's almost like you could switch out the word peace for calm and it would still work, right? So Jesus says, calm I leave you. My calmness I give to you. But is this Prince of Peace only concerned about our internal personal calmness? Or maybe he wants more than that for us. I mean, I'll take some interpersonal calmness. I'll take that quietness of my spirit. But I think the Prince of Peace wants to give us more. The Hebrew word Isaiah uses that we translate peace is one we've used in this service already. It's shalom. And shalom is one of those wonderful, marvelous words that is just pregnant with meaning. Peace for sure, but also well-being, health, prosperity, safety, complete. And I think maybe that last one may be the most illuminating for what Isaiah means when saying shalom, the Prince of Shalom. Because shalom is a picture of completeness and wholeness. Because life is complex. I don't know if you know that. You know, Johnny, you haven't been around a while yet, but life is complex. There are lots of moving parts, relationships, situations. Pastor Karen said in the welcome, like change is always happening. And so life is always moving. And pulling one thread will move 15 others. And when any of these parts go missing, when they break down, when they're absent, your life is no longer whole. You've been there? You know what I'm talking about? Because life is so intertwined, all of a sudden one piece of your life gets out of whack and everything else, like a house of cards, just starts to fall apart. And you feel that lack of wholeness. Like, my life is not quite whole, and it needs to be restored. You feel that sense of, I need to put things back in their place. Maybe that's why we like the status quo so much, because even when things aren't as they should be, they're at least as they've been, and I'm used to that. And so when change comes, even change that puts things where they should be feels like we're losing that wholeness because it's not where it was, and I'm used to where it was. It's like when your living room has had the furniture arranged in just a certain place for the last several decades, to the point where the lights could be off, it could be completely dark, but you could walk through normal and walk around tables and couches. And then if one thing gets put out of place, all of a sudden you're like, you can't walk through the living room with the lights on. You keep running into the thing and you're like, why is this here? What's happened is we've lost and need shalom. And shalom is bigger than any individual peace. Like, we can have our own personal inner quietness and our own personal shalom, but true shalom is bigger than any one of us because it's rooted in community. I bemoan the individualism that is so woven into the fabric of our culture because it leads us to think that all I need to be concerned about is my own personal wholeness and that I can achieve that just by myself and I don't need other things. But we're not created for aloneness. And I know that there are many of you that are introverts. I see Jerry comforting Kurt back there right now, and it's like, there are those, yes. That's right, Jerry, you need that too. Like, there are times we do need that solitude to recenter ourselves. But make no mistake, I don't care, and I know Vaughn will live by himself in a cabin in the woods and be just happy as a clam. But even as introverted as any of us are, we're still created for community. And so we need that idea of shalom to permeate not just us, but the community we're in, because one cannot be whole and complete by yourself. This was settled all the way back in Genesis 1 when God looked and said, "It is not good for man to be alone." And I don't mean that everybody needs to go and find somebody to marry. I don't think that's what God meant when he said that and even created Eve. It wasn't just that God said you need to be married and if you're single, you will never be complete. No, it meant that we aren't meant to live in isolation and be we single, married, divorced, widowed, or any number of things. We still need to be in relationships with one another. The peace of shalom is only found in the wholeness of people within community. Jesus is the Prince of Peace, the Prince of Shalom, precisely because he brings shalom wherever he goes. Read through the Gospels. His miraculous healings, wholeness, shalom. His exorcisms, shalom. His way of life brought shalom. His teaching, even his own death, the purpose of that was to bring shalom. The greatest loss of shalom that humanity experienced was all the way back in Genesis 3, and that loss of the divine unity we had with God. It severed the relationship between God and humanity and was restored to shalom by the Prince of Peace, Jesus Christ, in his death and resurrection. He's the Prince of Peace because he brings and restores shalom. And it's in a community that doesn't stay in one place. It doesn't stay one size, but as Sandy read, that the expanse of his kingdom and the expanse of his peace will grow. It's getting bigger. His shalom gets bigger. it grows. What little we maybe experience from time to time, and maybe as we grow closer to the author of peace and to the Prince of Peace, we'll experience in even larger and greater chunks until Jesus finally returns and restores all of Shalom to all heaven and earth, and it will grow till infinity. I think it's apt that Isaiah's list concludes with the Prince of Peace, because it's the culmination of all the others. Like, think about it. If you have the wonderful counselor who gives meaning and guidance, the mighty God who provides victory, the everlasting Father who gives love and presence, if you have all of those things, what do you get? Peace. He's the Prince of Peace precisely because he's able to also do all these other things that culminates in him giving shalom and providing shalom. Jesus couldn't be the Prince of Peace if he wasn't also the wonderful counselor, the mighty God, and the everlasting Father. Where have you been experiencing your shalom? Have you been able to experience shalom? That's no small ask. That's no small thing in the time we live in. I think that my guess is I would probably be safe to wager my salary if, wagering was a thing we did. I would probably be comforting wagering that at some point in the last year, there weren't a significant stretch where it felt like we'd lost all shalom. I had a period right there in the fall where it just felt like all shalom was gone. I didn't feel abandoned by God. I didn't feel that, I didn't feel the absence of his presence, but just my shalom was gone. My life was out of whack. There were some significant pieces that were not as they should be. And so I have spent the last few months reestablishing my divine unity with my Creator, spending time letting Jesus bring me shalom. And that has not happened in isolation, but it's happened through relationships and in community. And I am grateful that today, when I'm preaching on the Prince of Peace, I can at least testify that I know that God provides peace because he's provided it for me. And I can testify that even though I am not completely in shalom, that I can praise God that I'm in more shalom than I was 3 months ago. And that I'm on a road, I believe, that will lead me to being in even more shalom 3 months from now. Where are you experiencing shalom? There's a lady from the 14th century, and we refer to her as Julian of Norwich. And she committed herself to praying, worshiping God, and providing spiritual counsel for people. Pretty special lady. She lived in a cell, a small room attached to the Church of St. Julian in Norwich, England. We don't even know her actual name. So we just call her Julian of Norwich after the church where she lived. When Julian was 30 years old, a baby. She became very ill and had a near-death experience. And while she was receiving her last rites, she had multiple visions of Jesus. In one of those visions, Julian was troubled by the presence of sin in the world and in her life. Anybody been there? And Jesus in these visions responded to Julian by saying to her, "It was necessary that there should be sin, but all shall be well. And all shall be well. And all manner of thing shall be well." Julian of Norwich experienced shalom, a peace that passes all understanding, in that moment. And that peace sustained her for the rest of her life, which lasted at least 40 more years. This year has certainly wreaked havoc on our shalom. COVID has turned lives upside down. Over 1.75 million people have died. 310,000 plus in the US alone. Not to mention those that are suffering long-term effects from having the virus, or those who are mourning and grieving the losses. 25% of US adults, that's 1 out of 4, say that they have either themselves or someone in their household lost their job because of COVID. Half of those are still unemployed. And everyone is dealing with the struggles of being socially distant, coping with the isolation and loneliness, adapting to the inconvenience of wearing a mask everywhere, staying 6 feet apart from everyone, avoiding all the things we really want to do, like spend holidays with family, hug our friends that we haven't seen in months. How good it is that we then have a Prince of Peace who wants us to experience our own visions, that we will experience the wholeness and well-being that God desires for us. Our own visions where we are given a divine peace that sustains us regardless of our circumstances. Our own visions which promise a hope that eventually, even today, all shall be well. And all shall be well. And all manner of thing shall be well. How and where does Jesus want to provide and bring shalom to you today? Where will you create that space for some quiet to allow His peace some room to comfort and restore you to wholeness? Thank you for being part of our online family. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you get notifications for any future videos or content. And feel free to please share with a friend. You can also follow us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you feel so inclined and would like to donate and support our ministry, please click the donate button found in the description. Thank you and God bless you.